From Anshe Sfar Beth El Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Vayera, the nature of chinuch, education. And the word education in Hebrew is chinuch. Chinuch also implies inauguration, because we speak here not of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, of teaching the children Torah, which is a separate obligation. We speak here about inaugurating and initiating the children in the notion of keeping mitzvahs. As the Gemara in Sukkah says, 42a, Tana Rabbanan, we learned in an outside source, as soon as a child knows how to shake a lulav, he has to take a lulav. If he knows how to wrap himself in a talus, he has to wear the tzitzis. Lishmor tefillin, if he knows how to guard his tefillin, not to drop them, to disrespect them, not to take them in the bathroom. Oviv lokech lo tefillin, his father should buy tefillin for him. Udel ledaber, if he knows how to speak. Oviv lomdo Torah, his father should teach him Torah, not as a mitzvah of teaching Torah, but as inaugurating him, initiating him in the mitzvos. And Kriyat Shema should teach him how to say the Shema, because every child should say the Shema. The question is, when the Brisa, the source, says that it's an obligation, what kind of obligation is it? Is it a Torah obligation or a rabbinic obligation? Upon whom is the obligation? On the mother, on the father? Is it on the child himself? Parsha Vayera seems to be, as Rav Asher Weiss points out, one of the sources for this idea of chinuch, because it says Ki Dativ. God says, I know that Abraham, I know he'll command his children and his household after him. They'll keep the way of God, to do righteousness and justice. So that's what a Jew does. A Jew commands his children to do mitzvahs, to do good things. Tosafos Psachim says, I don't understand. If children are not really obligated in mitzvahs, how can, if you're bringing a Paschal lamb, and you have to, only people who can eat the Paschal lamb are people who've been designated prior to the slaughtering of the lamb, that they're going to eat this lamb. So you have to invite people, and the families team up and say, okay, we'll share this lamb together. But how can a child be included in that? A boy, a girl? After all, it's only a rabbinic mitzvah to educate the children. Tosafos assumes it's a rabbinic thing. So how can they do it? So, or as the Minchas Chinuch says, if the whole idea is chinuch, of just education, which is a rabbinic idea, how can you slaughter a Paschal lamb for your children, boys, girls? After all, the daughter, is the daughter even obligated in chinuch? Maybe just like girls don't have to learn Torah constantly like boys do, maybe they don't have to be educated in this kind of way either. But Rav Asher Weiss says, no, obviously that's wrong. Obviously, there's a mitzvah for both the mother and the father to educate both the boys and the girls, lasot tzedakah mishpat, to do the right thing. This is based on the parsha here in Vayera. Now the Rambam in Shvisas Asher, talking about the 10th day, the Yom Kippur, he says something, and there's an interesting distinction. He says, if a child is 9, 10, let them fast an hour or two. They usually eat breakfast at 9, let them eat at 10. They usually eat at 8, let them eat at 9. According to the strength of the child. But when he's 11, whether it's a boy or a girl, again, the Rambam thinks that boys and girls are the same for this. We say that there's a year difference. When they're 11, they should fast and finish. Rabbinically speaking, it's a rabbinic mitzvah, to educate them. So they ask, what do you mean? Why only when he's 11, it's a rabbinic mitzvah to educate them? At 9, it's not a rabbinic education. So Rabbeinu Manoach was a Provençal rabbi whose commentary recently recovered on the Rambam. And he says there's two types of chinuch. There's two types of education. One is just to show them to show the kids to do the right thing. Pasuk in Mishlei, we should educate the children according to their ways. 22:6 in Mishlei and Proverbs. Should educate the children to do the right thing. But then That's if they're 11, if they're 9 or 10. But when they're 11, then they have to finish. They're going to do it right. They're going to actually fast. That's chinuch. That's education. Because we know the Ritva and the Rashba say that when you educate a child, it has to be right. If you give a child a lulav, it should be a real lulav, if they're of age. If they're 1 years old, you can give them a plastic lulav. But if they're 9, 10, you should have to have a real lulav. You can share your lulav with them, but it should be a real lulav. And it should be kosher. The leaves, the hadassim, the aravos, the esrog should not have crazy blemishes. You have to teach the children how it should be. So when you're ready to tell the child, fast 24 hours, at the age of 11, according to the Rambam, today we don't really fast till 13, till the bar mitzvah. But for the Rambam, there's full fasting at 11. Oh, it's a full fast. That's real education. You're showing them how you should really do it. Al pi din, according to the law. That is real chinuch. That's why the Rambam only introduces the idea of chinuch, the idea of real education at 11 when they're doing the real deal. Then we have an interesting question Rabbi Asher Weiss asks. He says, if you give the lulav to the child, then the child can't give it back to you. You run into all kinds of legal problems if you give the lulav as a gift to your child. So maybe we could do the following. You say, hey, kid, let me lend you my lulav. So you kind of lend it to him, or you hold on tight with him. So the child will not acquire it. All right, it's true on the first day, maybe the second day of Sukkot, you should really own your lulav. But it's just for the kids. Or do we say, look, it has to be al pi din. This is a 12-year-old. He needs to take the right lulav. It's supposed to be a kosher lulav, and it needs to be his lulav on the first day. You have to train him that that's how you do it. So the Chidah says, it's okay, as long as it's a basic lulav has to be a lulav. Esrog should be an esrog, but the fact that it's not his, the details, that he'll get later. But the Mishnah Berurah says no. Chinuch has to be al pi din. If he's old enough to shake a lulav, you have to get him a lulav, and it has to be his lulav, and we got to figure out how to make it belong to him and not somebody else. What about the mother? Is the mother obligated? So the Tosfos says no, they're not obligated. Of course, according to Rabbi Asher Weiss, they're obligated in the notion of training the children to fear God, but not in the specific obligation to make sure they do this, that, and the other thing. That's the obligation of the father. The Trumas Hadeshan, Rabbi Isserlin from Germany, he said no, that women are obligated to educate their kids as well. But again, Rabbi Asher Weiss says everybody has to make sure that the will of God is done. Whether it's a father, whether it's a mother, whether it's a son, a daughter, everybody has to do the will of God. As far as certain technical questions, maybe it applies more to men than women. But then we have a question, whose obligation is this? What do you mean? Children have to be educated. Is that the parent's obligation to educate their children? Or no, when a child reaches educable age, 9, 10, 11, 12, or depending on each mitzvah, again, tefillin, they need to be more mature. Lulav maybe less. So when they reach that level, whose obligation is it? An obligation where the Torah actually, the rabbis put an obligation on the child or an obligation on the parent. So the Rambam, in the laws of Chametz U'Matzah, Pesach laws, he says, well, everybody has to eat the matzah, the women, the children, but the children, if he can eat bread, he's old enough to eat bread, then you teach him. So it sounds like you teach him. So the Kesef Mishnah, the Rabbi Yosef Karo, has a commentary on the Rambam. He says the obligation is on the parents. But Rabbi Asher Weiss points out, others point out, that's not correct. The Rambam in many places wrote that the child is obligated. It says, when a child knows how to shake a lulav, he's obligated. If you're 5, 6 years old, you're obligated in the sukkah in order to be inaugurated in the mitzvot. Now, this question is whether the mitzvah devolves on you or on the parent. This could be a debate between Rashi and Tosfot. Rashi says a child can't bench for his parents because he's not obligated, the parents are obligated. But Tosfot said, no. The child is also rabbinically obligated. So Tosfos believes that the parent is obligated. But the Rabbi Asher Weiss says, no, it's not true. Even Rashi agrees that the The obligation's on the parent. The question is, though, is the child considered obligated enough through the parent that they could fulfill the mitzvah for other people, for adults? Or we say it's completely on the father, therefore the child has no way that they could fulfill the mitzvah for other people. Let's say the bench for someone else, to say the greatest meals for someone else, because simply it's not sufficiently connected to the child. So, in conclusion, Rabbi Asher Weiss writes, and we need to understand, that when children get to the official age that they can understand, then the learning must be correct. It has to be al pidin, as the Ritva and the Rajba say. The lulav has to be a lulav, the sukkah has to be a sukkah. But earlier than that, when you're just sort of getting them ready, you say the first verse of the Shema, you shake some kind of a lulav, you fast for a few hours, that, you say the first half of benching, you can't bench the whole benching in one shot. Little children, you teach in the beginning of the song, in the middle of the song, you get to it later. That's a different type of chinuch. When you're at that stage, it doesn't have to be complete. When you get to the stage where they can do the whole thing, you have to teach the whole thing. That's what it means in Mishlei when it says, Chanoch hanar al pi darko. Train the child according to his way. You have to know, as a young child, it doesn't have to be complete. When he gets older, then you have to teach him properly. Why, says Mishlei, why should you teach him when he's young? Because if you teach him when he's young, then even when he's older, hopefully he will not stray from it. He'll continue in the path that you inaugurated, you initiated, you got started. Hopefully he'll continue in that path for many years to come. A bracha to everyone is that children, your grandchildren, should all follow in your footsteps. I'd like to thank Jason Lefkowitz for being our producer today. I'd like to thank you each for joining us here at the Anshe Sephardi Beth Elameth congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee. Join us each week for a discussion of the Parsha and the holidays and how-to videos. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit asb.org.